So we have this, we've been doing this series of talks on the system of practice. We had a very, very good talk by Vajramitra, which is online. You can listen to it if you haven't already on the North London Buddhist Centre YouTube channel. And that introduced the whole of the theme of the system of practice theme. And over the last month, we've been looking at integration. So tonight we're moving on, or today we're moving on. And so we've done integration, and we're going to be looking at positive emotion. That's the next, in a way, thread. I mean, I don't think they're steps. I think they all kind of work together. In a way, they're all, you could almost even think they're a path together. So we're going to be looking, and the topic I've been given is learning to love, the path of positive emotions. So I better get going because I know there's lots to be said, unfortunately, but anyway, or too much to be said. So, okay, the path of positive emotions. So even before we come to a Buddhist centre, we all have positive emotion. We all have positive qualities, but we also have attitudes and views and habits that hide, cover over, and hold out our positivity. The amount of positivity and our views and habits which hold out against that positivity relate to the causes and conditions of our life. What has shaped us to be who we are in this instant. And we don't often recognize or value the attributes or qualities that we bring, or recognize or aware of or understand our negative habits. The habits that hold us back from realizing, from developing our potential. The development of positive or expansive emotion is the second thread in the system of practice. I came into contact with meditation and Buddhism at a time of my life when I felt like I was losing my way. I was in my mid-30s, and on the outside, everything was fine. I had a good job, well paid, holidays, friends, holidays in Europe, but I was becoming more and more unhappy. There'd been this attraction to men, but attraction to which was unacknowledged, unrequited, and mostly buried. And looking back, it's difficult to understand why I didn't twig sooner. But a large part of myself remained repressed, unconscious, and unacknowledged. Gradually, however, it became obvious, even to myself, that I was gay. I remember telling a close friend, I remember the fear, the sheer terror I felt in uttering those words, "I think I'm gay." She bought me a course at the London Buddhist Centre, Ethics and Meditation for Gay Men. I went to meet gay men. I never meditated. I wasn't into religion. I went to meet gay men. And I fell in love with the meditation. I found it a way to be with myself, connect with myself, experience myself in a way that I hadn't allowed before. Following the course, I went on a retreat at Water Hall, an old farmhouse in a flat, barren part of the Suffolk countryside. A farmhouse which sat on the edge of an airfield, an old war airfield. And in the barn, they'd set up a shrine room. And after puja one night, with the words from the Heart Sutra dancing in my head, form is only emptiness, emptiness only form, I walked along the airfield, and gradually, everything that I held dear, important, my work, my family, myself, I started to perceive as empty. Eventually, I experienced myself, or at least experienced my mind outside my body, separated from my body, looking down at my body, which I also perceived as being empty. everything that I had relied on for a sense of self, a sense of security, I felt was suddenly empty. And I didn't experience it as an emotionally positive experience. Generally, I live in a world where I have a belief in something, maybe not a God, but a sense that there's something of substance that can be relied on. On that walk, my whole mental framework, my emotional outlook changed. That sense of emotional stability that I normally rely on changed to there can be nothing that can be relied on. The world appeared bleak, empty and meaningless. Didn't feel good. And I was a bit of a mess. My normal way of being in the world resumed after a day or so, except that in meditation, I started to have these experiences of flying over beautiful countryside full of green, fields, trees, vividly alive in my mind. These flying meditations lasted for the remainder of the retreat and then for a week or so following. Buddhism identifies these experiences as dhyana, an integration of mind, an integration coming together of aspects of oneself. Experiences defined as a continuous, uninterrupted flow of skillful mental events, a continuous flow of mental creativity. And there's something I read about later, but here I was introduced to experiencing a part of myself that I'd never experienced before. An experience of myself which was content, happy, enjoyable, even delightful to be in. We are all far more than the limited self, small world that we normally inhabit. Far more than the surface froth of our day-to-day conscious mind. The experiences of myself in these short moments was new. A positive part of myself, a part I never recognized, allowed, acknowledged, previously experienced. Another aspect of myself was coming into view, becoming conscious. Each of us, as human beings, inhabit a world which is defined by our emotional landscape. A landscape set within a range of habitual experience. Each of us as human beings are also able to experience more integrated, emotionally expansive states. Sangharakshita, our teacher, refers to the first level of integration as being a happy, healthy human being. And to make any kind of development of ourselves as individuals, never mind spiritual development, this is where we need to head, toward a happy, healthy human being. We first have to recognize our emotional landscape. Recognize, then clear our negative emotions. Recognize, then develop positive emotions. We start by establishing real, living contact with how we are, actually experiencing what's here. Sometimes we aren't in touch. Other times we desperately don't want to go there. Sometimes we're fearful, perhaps overwhelmed. We close down the emotions to the emotions that we don't like, we find unacceptable. Buddhist practice is to acknowledge and experience ourselves just as we are. Experience even negative emotion. Perhaps not indulge in it, but to experience it. Better to establish real, living contact with ourselves than to remain in a cut-off, in an unaware, alienated state. Alienated towards our unconscious energies and views which drive us. My early practice was about getting to know, coming into contact, learning to experience, learning to recognize my emotional landscape. In Buddhism, connecting, understanding and developing, strengthening our volitions, our intentions, what drives us, is central to the path of practice. But that's not just any emotion, not just any volition. It doesn't mean that we develop a volition to rob banks or yell at people or develop cynical views that are based in crude negative experiences. We develop positive emotion, and it is the development of emotional landscapes which leads to a sense of freedom, openness, clarity, sensitivity, an experience of expansion, an experience of ease, an experience of stability. To make any progress on our spiritual quest, we uncover, connect with, transform, refine, integrate, and perfect our emotions, the energies that drive us, the whole emotional, the whole volitional part of our being. We involve all of ourselves. We involve our heart. So a few years later, I attended a retreat at Vajramitra, with a basic 2-week beginner's meditation retreat at a retreat centre in North Wales. During each day, we practiced alternating the mindfulness of breathing with the metta practice. At the beginning of the retreat, I had this kind of premonition experience. In my mind, a bird appeared, white, a bit like a pelican with a long neck and a golden beak, and when it turned its head, its jewel-like eyes were revealed as glistening gems, oversized diamonds. My retreat experience divided into two. In the metta practice, my mind presented visions of Rwanda, Kosovo, visions of torture and cruelty. It was as though my mind was saying, what about this? What about that? Gradually, I learned to sit with these experiences, learning to be with, and then find within myself a sense of metta, a sense of care and kindness, of well-wishing towards them. But each time I found and developed a positive response, my mind seemed to say, well then, what about this? What about that? Bringing up visions of more and more difficulty, more and more fearful visions, experiences I found difficult, examples of man's inhumanity to man. I was, of course, encountering my fear. In the mindfulness meditations, when I had settled down, I found myself flying again. This time with the bird, the white bird, over snow-capped mountains, monasteries, and foreign lands. As the retreat progressed, the white bird and I, who had now become more like a swan, landed and settled onto a deep, silent lake and floated, composed, as though soaking, absorbing the rich, nourishing healing of the deep lake, the stillness, the silence. Towards the end of the retreat, I joined a walk with an order member, and recalling my meditation experiences, he suggested that I ask the bird who it was. This seemed to me to be weird. But in the meditation that followed, I found myself doing just as he suggested and was surprised. Learning to trust and live by our life, by that deeper truth of who we are, is a practice that I've needed to explore again and again at ever more subtle levels. The retreat ended with the practice of the metta. The positive emotions that had become developed over the 2 weeks informed the meditation. They revealed themselves in images of golden rain and white light streaming down over the people that I brought to mind, as though they were sitting in a firework display, a shower of energy and light. And then I recalled a close friend and the fireworks vanished. All the light and the colour and the energy of the fireworks disappeared. I was still connected, but it was calmer, more still, less frenetic. Outside of the meditation, I was disturbed by this. Why didn't I have the same depth of feeling, the same ability to bring a sense of care and kindness to my close friends? In meditation and in all life experiences, we can judge and categorize our experience. We bring judgments and expectations. It was like this, it should have been like that. Later I realized that with more intense emotions, the fire, the drama of color and light drop away. Intense, expansive emotions, I came to learn, have a more stable, clear, deeper, richer experience. I wrote in my diary, not this, not that, just as it is. As we practice, we become familiar with, understand an expanded emotional landscape that we can inhabit, explore, and practice within. We work to decrease desire and ill will, and we seek to develop actions, ways of being that lead to positive, expansive mental states. Positive is the ways of being that we realize can be developed, which are unlimited, which can be explored and practiced both within and outside of meditation. Gratitude is the practice of relaxing our sense, our experience of ourselves. If we look, we have much to be grateful for. The Roman philosopher Marcus Tullius Cicero considered the act of gratitude to be not just the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. And we can strengthen our appreciation of what we have through practice. Gratitude amplifies the positive experience we've had by bringing the richness into our mind. In Buddhist practice, we develop a sense of gratitude for our life, our teachers, and the Dharma itself, this precious gift. Tibetan texts start with expressing gratitude for our precious human birth, reflecting on the preciousness of being born human, is an exercise in developing gratitude and in defining priorities about what's important. The human body, at peace with itself, is more precious than the rarest gem. Cherish your body. It is yours this one time only. This human form is one with difficulty. It's easy to lose. All worldly things are brief. Like lightning in the sky, this life, you must know, as a tiny splash of a raindrop. A thing of beauty that disappears, even as it comes into being. Therefore, set your goal and make use of every day and night to achieve it. From Tsongkhapa. In the Buddhist words, you have no cause for anything but gratitude and joy. If we're in touch with the richness of our lives, with all that we have, there's an expansiveness of spirit. Generosity is also an open-heartedness of spirit, an expansion of ourself. To give of oneself, or what one has to give. Generosity is something you can be practiced with any state of mind. You don't have to be in a good mood. It creates positive relationships with others, which is vital to our happiness, our emotional landscape. We can simply take an interest in somebody, give encouragement, look at people with kindly eyes, smile, offer to make the tea, welcome someone, volunteer, giving of ourselves, or give. Central to the system of practice of developing expansive emotion is the practice of the metta bhavana. The Sanskrit word maitri, or love, is derived from mitra, which means friend. Friendship, a state of enduring affection, esteem, intimacy, and trust between two people. In the West, I think we find friendship kind of rather tepid, slightly as a kind of safe connotation. It's as though we don't allow ourselves to feel the depth of its potential. But quoting Sangharakshita from the 1968 version of Vision and Transformation talks, he says, it's not like this in the East. There, maitri, or friendship, is seen as a very powerful and very positive emotion, usually defined as the overwhelming desire for the happiness and well-being of the other person. Not just in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense as well. Buddhist literature and teaching exhort us over and over again to develop that feeling we have for our friend to all living beings. Just as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, even so, let him cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings. Metta is really just seeing people, allowing ourselves to expand, to feel, to sense them, being receptive to them, how they are, experiencing them with a full and open heart, allowing them to be who they are, how they are, seeing them clearly, fully, their difficulties, their qualities, their sufferings, their joy. In the full seeing, to wish them well, to be for them, to want the best for them. It's an emotion that lies at the heart of all positive emotions, and it transcends the elation and excitement and the depression, which is an inevitable counterpart, which often is our day-to-day, week-to-week experience. When we live for a little bit of excitement, a Saturday night out, a new purchase, a holiday, in amongst quite a lot of dullness and boredom, a little bit of elation located within states of depression, anxiety, disappointment, and satisfaction. Metta establishes an even, stable positivity, a deeply contented experience, where one sense of oneself expands and relaxes into openness, friendliness, patience, cheerfulness. Once established, that natural quality of metta can be developed and refined. When metta is brought to suffering, love changes into compassion, karuna. Compassion is held as the highest regard, the highest importance in Buddhism. The Buddha recommends that the Bodhisattva, the being who aspires to enlightenment, should not be taught too much. But if he's only taught compassion, if he or she is only taught compassion, learns only compassion, then that is sufficient. When metta is brought to the joys and happiness of the world, love changes to mudita, to sympathetic joy. As the heart opens, we open to the delight and to the joy of other people's goodness, good fortune, good deeds. Developing metta and feeling its response as compassion or sympathetic joy to the arisings of suffering and the joy in the world, one develops upeksha, a tranquility or peace, an expansive emotion, a state all of its own. These four meditation practices combine to form the Brahma Viharas, literally translated as the abode of the gods. This expansion of ourselves is something is something, as a Buddhist, we develop, practice, something that is available to all of us. Unfortunately, most of us find comfort and satisfaction in the status quo. There's a story about a fishmonger who found herself late in a market selling her catch. Being much later than normal, she realized it was too late to return home, so she started to look for a place to spend the night. A nearby storeholder, a flower seller, offered his shop. Thanking him, she settled down amongst the flowers. The flowers were many and varied, exotic in shape and colour and perfume. But however she tried, she found it hard to settle, hard to sleep. The shop was warm, safe, in a way a kind of paradise, but the beauty and perfume were disturbing. Eventually, she pulled her fish bucket close to her head and slept. We too, most of the time, want to settle down within the emotional landscape that we normally inhabit. We also, placing ourselves in situations and with people we find habitually comfortable. Sangharakshita refers to this as the gravitational pull of the conditioned. The weight of habit and repeating behaviours, the choosing to stay and to be reborn with the familiar, the known, the safe. Reinforcing the behaviours and habits that keep us small. To make the transition from our small habitual self to a bigger, more creative, more expansive being, we develop Shraddha, often translated as faith. But that's not faith in the sense of belief, or in the sense of believing something to be true when it can't be demonstrated. Sangharakshita defines Shraddha as the emotional response of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe. It's a response of an open heart to spiritual maturity. One could say it's the development of love to the expansive, the development of love toward our ultimate potential. A few years later, again on a Vajramitra retreat, I found myself grappling with ideas around concepts of beauty and truth. I had thoughts, ideas going on, questions. My retreat didn't feel like it was going very far. Something wasn't quite right, something in the way. I had doubt. Doubts regarding my trust, confidence in what I was doing, confidence in Buddhism. I felt like I was up against a wall, my face pushed against an invisible barrier. No way forward, no way to go. And then an answer came. Not an intellectual answer, not a framework of ideas or concepts, but an answer from a deeper part of myself. Lying in bed one morning, prior to getting up for a meditation that I didn't want to attend, lying in bed, literally facing the wall, an image of a spear appeared in my mind. The spear was flying through space, speeding towards a tulip-like flower. And as the spear flew towards the flower, it slowed, became weightless. Time, motion, slowed. And in that moment of slow motion, the spear, weightless, like a feather, shredding the flower, petal fragments spiraling into space. Then my mind opened into a blue sky, and within the blue sky space, something started to evolve, unfold. A white, modern, architecturally refined building. A piece of beautiful modern architecture. A building, a beautiful modernist architectural home. A palace, unfolding within the blue, clear sky. Shraddha, faith, when developed, counters irrational doubt, indecision, counters our staying vague, remaining unclear, remaining uncommitted. Practicing to develop Shraddha is to unfold toward the more expansive nature of our being, helping us to make the transition from our small, habitual, doubting, fearful self. Ritual and devotion practices develop Shraddha, cultivating a confidence to touch a more deeper part of our being. We open to the expansive, develop a trust, a confidence in the goal. Like all expansive emotions, is a response to growth, an opening of metta, of love towards our potential, a love of growth and transcendence. In reality, most of the time, I'm not expansive. My practice brings me up against, brings into consciousness experiences of how I am, an experience of not being expansive. I can and do find myself reacting, defending, staying small. With all religions, there can be this terrible gulf between the theory and the practice, between the understanding and how we act. This also applies to Buddhism. Very quickly we can understand the framework of Buddhist practice, but there remains this gulf between our intellectual understanding and our operation. We can understand the ideas, but we only know it through our conscious mind, with the irrational part of ourselves. If we want to put something into practice, we need to engage, enlist a part of ourselves, a part of our being, which is much larger than we care to admit, no less important than our reason, a part of ourselves which goes its own way, does its own thing, a part that is not touched at all by our rational or intellectual knowledge, our delight in ideas. We need to enlist a part of ourselves which is more often unconscious than conscious. We need to enlist our emotions, our instinct, our volition. Again, as Sangharakshita points out, for most of us, the central problem with the spiritual life is to find emotional equivalents for our intellectual understanding. Ceasing to do evil, learning to do good, purifying the heart is easy to understand, but difficult to practice. Ultimately, Buddhist practice, the liberation of the heart, is the alignment of ourselves, our emotions, our drives, with our intellect. How many New Year's resolutions have been buried by February? We can have the idea about what we want to do, to pursue, but unless we're able to get behind ourselves, behind our goal, and continue to do so, the goal is lost. The practice of opening to a more expansive way of being deeply content with other, is slow and patient work. Our default position is to be self-referential, to view the world from a me perspective. Being kind and friendly and open to all beings is a big ask. Critical is the patient and gradual development of friendliness and well-wishing, of relaxing, softening, loosening our fixedness, for opening and expanding ourselves to our life, into our life. It's a journey, a path in which we uncover, connect with, transform, refine, integrate, and perfect. It's work, making conscious effort to choose the skillful, rejecting responses which are unskillful. We work to act wisely, making wise choices on how to behave, how to be. as I work against the gravitational pull of the conditioned, the gravitational pull of my small self, a force not to be underestimated. To make progress requires conscious effort, consciously choosing the helpful, rejecting situations and responses which are unhelpful. So within awareness, we practice to refine our intentions, developing helpful, skillful intentions, choosing how to behave in our own best interests and the best interest of others, acting so that our lives and those around us flourish. Doing so, we change the current of our mind, change the way our wishes emerge, developing helpful intentions, helpful to you, helpful to others. These actions strengthen the intention, direction of our mental patterns. Over time, we work to redirect the course of our mind. It's training. We're aligning ourselves with one of the fundamental currents or laws of the universe. To be happy, fulfilled, benefit others, we work with the law of karma. We understand actions have consequences. We refine our actions towards the skillful, towards the helpful. Developing skillful intentions has consequences, will bear fruit. Over time, experiences resulting from our practice arise. The texture of our life, how it feels, changes. Happiness, ease, fulfillment, joy arise. To start though, we have to learn to discriminate. What is skillful, what is unskillful? Sifting our experience and understanding for ourselves what is skillful, what is unskillful. And we're helped in this practice by the precepts, which set out how a person who has developed a deep ethical sensitivity would act. We understand gradually on deeper and deeper levels what is this helpful, what this skillful consists. Consciously adjusting our behavior accordingly, consciously turning away from the unhelpful, holding back, deliberately saying no. Turning towards the skillful, the ethical, turning towards behaviors that enrich our lives. The Buddha set out 4 right efforts. We eradicate from our minds the unskillful states which have arisen. We prevent the arising in our minds those unskillful thoughts and mental states which have not yet arisen. We maintain those skillful thoughts and mental states which have arisen and which already exist. And we develop skillful thoughts and mental states which have yet to arise. Both in our day-to-day interactions and in meditation, we practice developing more integrated, positive mental states, working against the gravitational pull of the conditioned, the small reactive me. It's work that we consciously choose to undertake. Part of the eradicating, preventing, maintaining, developing is the recognition that conditions are important. Being with others who practice ethics help support us. Being with others, we align our behavior to those who are more ethically sensitive. Situations which uphold ethical values make our practice easier. Situations which are simple, uncomplicated, conditions such as retreats, nature, help us maintain and develop more skillful mental states. If we want to maintain emotional positivity, we need consciously to place ourselves in situations which help with people who support. We need to cultivate and develop our context. making effort, work, doesn't sound expensive. It sounds more rational than emotional. But what we're doing is utilizing the self to loosen the self, to loosen self-clinging, to loosen our self-referencing, to free ourselves from our self-attachment. We take ownership of our life. We study ourselves to forget ourselves. We get out of our way. We practice the pleasure of enriching our life. Doing so, we experience stronger and stronger interconnectedness, a more valuable, a more beneficial, a more fruitful way of being. And in the process, we open to something far more mysterious, much larger than ourselves. 8 years following that retreat of Vajramitra, on my ordination retreat in the valley in Spain, for 4 months we led a very simple life. We meditated, washed, studied, cooked, walked, slept. With each task, we gradually learnt just to be, to enjoy, to engage, leading a simple life together with 25 other men. I would often climb the rocks which form the valley and sit silently, staring at the blue sky, listening to the void, the wind, the silence. It was incredibly simple, yet incredibly rich. As the seasons changed, I walked through meadows filled with wild flowers, and sometimes would lie with the flowers and watch the clouds of butterflies dance. I remember sitting peacefully in the morning sun, absorbing my meditation, overlooking the valley, soaking in the simplicity of the clear, crisp morning air. The sun once more starting to warm the earth. Fellow retreatants completing their morning ablutions, listening to the clang of mugs and toothbrushes. At the end of the retreat, I had a dream, a lucid dream. I was totally aware, alive and conscious to my dream experience. I was now inside that palace in the sky. It was full of light and colour and space. And in my mind, as my mind marvelled in delight at the exquisite detail, the colour, the design, the experience would unfold through a secret door, a wall panel swivelling open, unfolding, opening into new rooms, new spaces of colour, light, beautifully composed and detailed. In amongst the experience, there were times when I was conscious, not just being immersed in the experience, but I knew what was going to happen before it happened, before the image unfolded, as though the visual images were a response, a creation of my mind. My overwhelming memory is being totally absorbed in the experience of beauty, light and colour, unfolding in spontaneous creativity of overwhelming beauty. Next morning, we rose early to walk out of the valley to a nearby town, part of our acclimatation back into the world, and the sun was rising as we climbed to the top of the ridge. The clear blue sky tinted pink with the first rays of the morning light. Yet I recall how dull and flat my experience seemed compared with the outstanding vitality and richness of my mental experiences just a few hours earlier. Unfortunately, by the afternoon, I was tired and irritable, and my speech conveyed my mental irritation. A truly positive state is one that can be sustained, whatever life brings, not one that disintegrates at the first difficulty. Whatever happens, even with an unpleasant experience, there's always the potential to respond skillfully. to maintain a positive stance. This doesn't mean pretending that some experiences are not unpleasant. They are. It simply means taking responsibility for how we respond. Each moment, each situation is an opportunity to practice being skillful, to respond being helpful, to remain composed, expansive and open. We use effort, 4 right efforts, to clear away our tightly held self-referencing, clearing our small self out of the way so that conditions that bring forth a greater being start to influence us. 4 right efforts which lead to a more expansive way of being, more expansive mental states. We open up to a bigger, more creative, more spontaneous part of ourselves. We open up to the magic of awareness. We snatch a glimpse of the way in which to travel. Simply, it's about connecting with the positivity, the positive that we find in our experience, and growing it. We all have pleasure, periods of creativity, periods of enjoyment. We all have times when we're kind and caring, friendly, open and positive. Imagine that positivity continuing unbroken for a day, a week, a lifetime. We practice becoming emotionally positive in whatever we're doing, whether it's sitting in meditation, working, talking, or just being quietly by ourselves. Expanding our sense of self, letting our light shine. We let go of the small, fixed, reactive way of being. We open into a larger dimension. The journey involves including all of ourselves, all of our being, all the energies that drive us, the irrational, the emotional, the volitional parts of our being. Simply, it involves an opening of the heart. We both stabilize and expand our sense of self, bring enjoyment to every aspect of our life, contentment into each moment of our day, developing gratitude for all that we have, sitting in a quiet confidence of the work that needs to be done, developing friendliness and care for ourselves and all beings. We bring a positive mind to each moment. Not only develop, but expand and refine our positivity, overcome negative emotions, develop a love of moving towards the open dimension. Opening the heart, we open to the imagination, to values like beauty and meaning. We open to something that is beyond our normal world of me, trying to be bigger. We become willing to experience ourselves as part of something greater, which is mysterious, beyond knowing, opening to the mysterious and the unknowable. We place ourselves, our life, within a richer, deeper tapestry. The rain has stopped. The clouds have drifted away. The weather is clear again. If your heart is pure, then all things in this world are pure. Abandon this fleeting world, abandon yourself. Then the moon and the flowers will guide you along the way. It's a poem from Royakin, 17th century. And lastly, I just want to finish with a poem by Sangharakshita called The Unseen Flower. Compassion is far more than emotion. It is something that springs up in the emptiness when you yourself are not there, so that you do not know anything about it. Nobody, in fact, knows anything about it. If they knew, it would not be compassion, but they can only smell the scent of the unseen flower that blooms in the heart of the void. Thanks very much.